Okay, let's just jump right in. Have you ever wondered how Switzerland got so ridiculously rich? I mean, think about it. It's this tiny, landlocked country. No natural resources, no colonies, no ocean access. And yet, it's one of the wealthiest places on the entire planet. It's a huge puzzle, right? And let me tell you, the answer has almost nothing to do with that clean, peaceful image we all have.
And this quote, this just nails it. It really sets the tone for what we're about to get into. So yeah, for a minute, just forget about the chocolate and the fancy watches. We are about to pull back the curtain on a strategy for getting rich that is, well, it's ruthless, and it's been playing out for centuries.
So you've got this split personality, right? On one side, you have the Switzerland from the travel brochures. You know, the stunning mountains, the cuckoo clocks, this whole idea of perfect neutrality. But the reality, the actual engine that drives its economy? Oh, that's built on something way, way grittier. We're talking mercenaries, looted gold, secret vaults. Today, we're going to peek behind that pristine curtain.
All right, first up, from mercenaries to bankers. So, where does this whole story start? Well, not in some quiet, polished bank. Nope, it starts on the battlefield. The very first pillar of Swiss wealth was all about turning violence into a state-sponsored, for-profit business.
I mean, picture it. You're living in the medieval Alps. You can't really grow anything. You're literally surrounded by rocks. So what's your most abundant resource? What can you possibly export? The Swiss figured it out. Their #1 exportable asset was tough, mountain-hardened men. They realized they could sell the services of their own people as Europe's most feared and honestly most effective mercenaries.
And this is where you see this absolutely brilliant, if a little chilling, business pivot. So, for centuries, right, they're exporting soldiers and they're getting paid massively in gold. But then, once they've stacked up all this cash, this, blood money, they have a light bulb moment. They realize, wait a second, it's way more profitable to finance the wars than it is to actually fight in them. Game changer.
Okay, so now they've got this huge pile of cash from their mercenary days. The next logical step? They need to attract even more money. So they basically invent a brand new product, something the world's rich and powerful wanted more than anything. Absolute, total, ironclad secrecy. And this whole banking secrecy thing, it wasn't some ancient tradition. Not at all. It was a direct, calculated response to a crisis. Think about the 1930s. The world is in chaos. Post-World War I, European governments are desperate for tax money, and they're hunting down tax evaders. At the same time, the Nazis are rising to power and seizing people's assets. Switzerland was getting squeezed from all sides. And the response was, frankly, a stroke of genius and economic self-defense.
And this is the part you really have to understand. The Federal Banking Act of 1934 completely changed the game. Before, keeping a client secret was just, good business, a professional courtesy. After this law, revealing a client's identity became a criminal offense. A banker could go to jail for it. And just like that, boom, Swiss banks became a financial black hole for the entire world. Money poured in from everyone, and I mean everyone, from Jewish families desperately trying to escape the Nazis to the very Nazi officials who were stealing from them.
And that leads us to maybe the darkest chapter of this whole story. That number, 85%. That's the estimated share of Nazi Germany's looted gold that was laundered, basically, through Switzerland during World War II. Think about what that means. By trading all that stolen gold for Swiss francs, Swiss banks gave the Nazi regime the hard currency they desperately needed to buy war materials from other countries. They literally helped keep the Nazi war machine fueled.
Okay, so banking is one massive pillar. But what about industry? How did they build that? Well, again, they had to get creative. Being stuck in the mountains with no access to the sea meant competing in something like steel production or shipbuilding was a total non-starter. The shipping costs alone would kill you. So, they had to come up with a completely different game plan.
And this chart, it lays out their formula perfectly. Look, they couldn't take 1 kilogram of steel worth $1 and turn it into $20 worth of horseshoes. Why? Because shipping heavy horseshoes out of the Alps would eat up all the profit. So instead, their model was to take that same kilogram of cheap steel and turn it into $10,000 worth of tiny, intricate, super complex watch parts. The strategy was simple, but brilliant. Maximize the value and minimize the weight and size.
And you know the story of how their most famous industry even started? It's pretty wild. So you have this religious reformer, John Calvin, who comes to Geneva and bans all sinful luxuries, like jewelry. So what happens to all the city's expert jewelers? Do they go broke? Nope. They pivot. They take all their amazing skills in making tiny, intricate things, and they start making watches, which were considered a practical tool, not some sinful piece of bling. Another classic Swiss pivot.
All right, next up. So we've seen how they moved from mercenaries to bankers, and from rocks to watches. The next phase in their master plan was to stop just making high-value things and start becoming the invisible middleman for, well, for pretty much everything.
So let's talk about Swiss Pharma. The origins of their massive pharmaceutical industry are, let's just say, a bit sketchy. Back in the 1800s, Germany was the king of the chemical industry. The thing is, Switzerland didn't really have patent laws back then, not until 1907. So what did Swiss entrepreneurs do? They just copied the German formulas for chemical dyes, reverse-engineered them, made them for cheaper, and sold them. And the money they made from that patent piracy, that's what they used to build the foundations of companies you might have heard of, like Novartis and Roche.
This is just one of those stats that makes you do a double take. Just think about this. A country with zero oil, no significant mines, and no coastline somehow controls the trade for 35% of the world's oil, 60% of its metals, and half its grains. How is that even possible? It's because they don't touch the stuff. The oil tanker never goes near Geneva. They just control the contracts, the financing, the insurance, the paperwork. And for that, they take a very nice cut. Thank you very much.
And this whole model was really perfected by guys like the infamous commodities trader Mark Rich. He was a fugitive from U.S. justice, by the way. He set up his company in the super low-tax canton of Zug, and he used Switzerland's famous neutrality as a legal shield. It allowed him to trade with absolutely anyone, including sanctioned states like apartheid-era South Africa or even Iran during the hostage crisis. He bypassed global politics and made an absolute fortune doing it.
Okay, so you've built this incredible system. You're the world's banker, the world's broker, you have all this wealth. Now for the million-dollar question. How do you protect it all? I mean, you can't be the world's vault if everyone thinks it's easy to break into. And Switzerland's solution was, yet again, genius. They turned their national defense into another profit center.
This really came to a head during World War II. I mean, they were completely surrounded by Axis powers. So they came up with what they called the National Redoubt, or the Porcupine Strategy. The plan was simple and brutal. If anyone invades, the army immediately retreats deep into fortified mountain bases, and they blow up every single major tunnel and bridge in the country. The message to someone like Hitler was crystal clear. Sure, you can invade us, but all you're going to get is a useless pile of rubble.
And this obsession with security, it didn't stop after the war. It went right through the Cold War. Get this, Switzerland has enough nuclear fallout shelter capacity for 114% of its population. Every single person has a spot. And all of this extreme preparedness, this paranoia almost, it creates what investors call a safe haven premium. Whenever there's a crisis anywhere in the world, what do people do? They dump their money into the Swiss franc. It's not just a currency. It's like buying a share in an impenetrable national fortress.
So for like 500 years, this entire model has worked almost perfectly. It's been an incredible run. But now, in the 21st century, we're starting to see some pretty serious cracks appear in the walls of that fortress. I mean, look what's happened recently. The collapse of Credit Suisse in 2023, that was a huge shock. It completely shattered the myth that Swiss banks were just invincible. At the very same time, massive international pressure, especially from the US, has forced them to weaken their biggest selling point, secrecy. They now have to automatically share account information with other countries. But are they done? Not a chance. They're already pivoting, again. They're trying to position themselves as the go-to regulated home for the world of cryptocurrency in a place they call Crypto Valley.
So when you boil it all down, what is the Swiss model? It's actually pretty simple. They figured out, way before anyone else, that the most valuable resources on Earth aren't things you can dig out of the ground, like gold or oil. The most valuable resources are ideas, abstract concepts. And what does Switzerland sell? They sell trust, they sell neutrality, and most importantly, they sell silence. They provide a service that the world's powerful pretend to hate, but secretly, desperately want.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. You know, it's really easy to point fingers and criticize the Swiss model, but at the end of the day, all they did was build a brilliant system that caters to the hidden, unspoken demands of global elites, of massive corporations, and even of other governments. In a way, Switzerland is just a mirror. It reflects the world's true desires back at us. So the real question isn't just about them. It's, what does that reflection say about us?